Hello everyone, today we will talk about the encapsulation. As a part of today's agenda, we will see what is encapsulation, what are the private fields. We will also talk about getter setter methods. We will see some of the benefit of encapsulation with one of the coding example, and then we will wrap up this class with course summary. Okay. Now, once you talk about the encapsulation, so encapsulation is a process of wrapping data and methods together into a single unit that is known as a class and hiding the internal implementation details from outside. So these definition has two part. The one part is like wrapping up the data fields and method together into a single unit as a class, right? So that is also one of the encapsulation. And if you do some additional transformation like hiding the internal element details from outside, so that is known as a good encapsulation. So it doesn't matter you have provided your class attribute as a data access modifier like private and with the public getter setter method, still that class is known as an encapsulation. Okay, so let's move to code, then we will see what is good and bad encapsulation. Okay, so right now I am taking the same example which we have followed in earlier class. So if you guys remember, earlier we have created a student class, right? And the student class have six attribute like name, age, roll number, city, college, and course. Okay, now let's try to create the object of this class and see what is happening if we are not providing any private access modifier to these class attribute and any public getter setter, right? So let me create one more class to run this particular object class student. So we will create a class known as app. We will create a main method because to run any Java program we need a main method, right? So now we have a app class with main method. Now we will try to create a student class object. Okay, so to create a student object we just need to write that class and the object reference, then we will use the new keyword, and now our student object is created. Now let's assign the class attribute values. So we will take as a object name dot name. So name we can have like Ajay. Then we have student age, right? So age we can put as let's say 25. And then we have student dot city. City we can put as a Delhi. Now move to another attribute, student dot course, or maybe a college. So college we can assign like an IT. Then we have student dot course, and of course we may have BE, Bachelor of Engineering. And I think something is missing. We have only 5 attributes. Okay, so one attribute we still missing. What is that? So that is roll number. Okay, so that roll number we may have 101. Now we have created object and assign the attribute values. Now let's print this object. And object is student, you can say student is, and then we can write the object reference. Okay, so if you run this class, so you can see whatever the value we have assigned here, right? So there is a misspell, let me correct it. Okay, so once we run this again, so you can see whatever the value we have assigned here, we are getting the values, right? And in once you go to student class, so there is no private access modifier for these attribute. So if there is no access modifier, by default Java consider as a default access modifier. Okay, we will we will discuss all those access modifier in a separate class, but for your understanding, if there is no access modifier, so Java treat this particular attribute as a default attribute. Okay, and we will see the access level in a separate class. So what I mean to say here, you can see there is no additional access modifier provided within the class attribute, and even there is no getter and setter for accessing those attribute publicly, right? But still I am able to run this program and I am able to get those value. So still this is a encapsulation, because you can see the class have all the attribute combining in one single unit known as a class. Okay, and it also have one method known as toString. So all attribute and methods are already present in a single unit which is known as a class. But this is an example of bad encapsulation. Why it is bad? So let me do some changes. Okay, so let's say if I change the integer value age from 25 to minus 25, right? And if I'm going to run this particular class again, so now you can see I have the age value as minus 25. So this will never happen, right? Okay, so you can see the age is always greater than 0. We don't have any age where the value is negative. So the thing is, there is no validation on the attribute level. So if you provide if you give any bulk data, right, any data which is not valid, but still you are able to run your program, you are able to display the object, right, which is not correct. So in the same way, if I'm giving some kind of a city like ABCD, right, which is incorrect value, right? There is no ABCD kind of city anywhere, right? So if I'm still able to run this class, so let me run this class again. Now you can see the age is like minus 25 and the city value is ABCD, which is wrong, right? So to correct these particular thing, we have to write the good encapsulation. So what is good encapsulation? Let me go to the student class. Okay, now in this class, what we will do, the very first rule to have the good encapsulation is like make all the members as a private. So once I make the all the member as a private, so it means these class attribute are not accessible outside the class. Okay, so let me add this first, then we will see what I mean to say. Okay, now you can see once we have added the private access modifier to all class attribute, then there is an issue in my app class. There is compilation issue, right? We are getting the error. What is the error? If you see the error says the field student dot name is not visible. So we hide the visibility of student class attribute from outside the student class, right? So that is the benefit. So any private class member have the visibility within that class. Outside that class there is no visibility. So to provide that access to outside the class, we have to write the setter and getter for all these class attribute. So if we are using id, so we have automated mechanism to create a setter getter. So you just need to go to source and then generate setter getter, and generate setter getter you have to select for which attribute you want setter getter, and based on that you can decide. So right now I'm giving all the attributes to have getter setter, because I have made all my class attribute as a private. Okay, so once I added all those private setter getter for each attribute. So you can see this is the getter for my attribute name, this is the setter for my attribute name. So uh, so the thing is, whatever the attribute type, the same type you are going to return as a part of your getter, and the setter is always the type of void. Why? Because it is just setting the value, it is not returning anything. So void means I am not going to return anything from this method, I am just going to assign the value. We already discussed the this keyword, right? So this is like this is keyword is referred to the your current object, and the name is whatever you are passing from your another class. Here we can say from app.java, right? So to correct the issue, what we have to do right now, so instead of direct assigning the value, we can do, we can call the object setters, right? So let me call those setters. So we have student dot set name we can assign as a Ajay, whatever we have assigned earlier, and then we have student dot set age, and then we can assign, still we can assign them 25. So whatever value we have assigned earlier, we can just add that, and then we have student dot city, and then we have value as Delhi, and it should be set. Actually, I have an incorrect value here. Okay, now move to other attribute. And one more, what is remaining? Roll number, right? So roll number we have 101. Okay, now let's try to run this program. So still you can see we are getting the same value which we are getting earlier, right? And now we are saying it is a good encapsulation, but uh, there is no validation, right? Still there is no validation. So how this is a good encapsulation? Because this give me the control to control the value of my attributes, right? So I can decide where I have to create that object, or where I can throw some error for some incorrect values, right? So how we can do that? So let's say once we talk about the age, so we have discussed that age can't be less than 0, it is always greater than 0, right? So before sending anything, we just need to write one of the check here. So let's say if this dot age, or even you can say simply age, if age is less than 0, right? So what we can do, we can just throw an exception, throw new runtime exception, and then we can give some error. What we can say, invalid age must be greater than 0. Okay, so this information we can provide here. So it is exception. Okay. Now let me run that program again. Now once you run this program, then you can see we are validating that age, right? So the good encapsulation always give me the control to validate my inputs. Okay, so before running this program and creating that object, I am validating my age. So let me correct the value. Now if you run this, the same thing again. So you can see as soon as you provide the correct value, you will get the object, and if you provide any wrong value, then it will give you the validation error. So it will stop you before creating your object, right? So this is the benefit of encapsulation. So we have seen the benefit of using getter and setter, which provide us the control to validate our class variables before creating the object. So these are the benefits we can compare without encapsulation and with encapsulation. So without encapsulation, you can assume as a bad encapsulation, and with encapsulation, we can assume as a good encapsulation. So without encapsulation means there is no getter setter, there is no private access modifier for your class variable, and with encapsulation, we have private access modifier with our class variable with their public getter setters, right? So what kind of benefit we are getting? So we have multiple aspect. Some of the aspect I am showing here. So one of the aspect like your data access. So once you talk about the data access, public variable data access variable can be accessed from anywhere. We have seen this, right? Earlier in our bad encapsulation, we have all the public or default kind of variable exists in our student class, and those variable are accessible from our app.java class. But once we provided the good encapsulation as a private variables, then we have hide those access to other classes, right? And while providing the getter setter, we also provide the data validations. So one data validation means we are able to verify and validate the negative age number. Similar way, we can also validate the empty name values, null name values, right? The roll number range, right? So this is can be a valid use case. Let's say if there is a particular number of seat exist in a particular college for a particular course. So let's say in NIT there is a BE course is running, and that BE course have only 60 student seats available. So we have only the student from 1 to 60 range, right? So we in that case we don't have roll number more than 60. So that validation we can provide from the roll number. We can provide the city validation. If we don't have any kind of incorrect value, we can't pass any incorrect value for city like ABCD, or maybe the range we can decide. So we don't have any kind of invalid range, maybe the 100 character or maybe 200 characters. So we can limit that range as well for the our user input. So all those things give us the data validation, which also give me the safety in the sense like you can't give the incorrect value special characters within those values. So if you talk about the name, age, right? Age always contain your integer values, right? So you can't pass any you can say string type or character type values to that integer age parameters. So all those give you the validation plus safety. And the maintainability is like it is a loose coupling and easy to maintain. How it is a loose coupling? Because it loose couple your logic to assigning a value from the validation part. So you are not able to direct assign any thing to your class variable. You have the control, and you can maintain all those validation within your getter and setters, right? So basically on the setters part, getter will help you to get that data. Now we have the flexibility and security is like, let's say if we are assigning a too much length values, and these value need to store in our databases, and those databases columns also have some kind of limit, right? So if you're aware of any kind of SQL databases like Postgres, MySQL, or Oracle, so we have very common default size of storing a string value like varchar, and by default is a 255 characters, right? So we may also have some kind of customization on those columns length. So let's say if I'm talking about the name or city, so instead of using 255 character length, I can use 50 character or 25 character. So based on that, I can decide those validation on my name, on my city, right, on my course, on my age. So if anybody is going to provide me more than 50 character for a city, and there is a limit for that city value is 50, so I can put those validation on my setter method for that name, right, or that city, and we can validate. So if the length of name or city is more than 50, then we can simply throw an exception and say that invalid range or invalid length of that your input. As a summary, we talked about the encapsulation, how encapsulation help us to hide data and protect the object state. We have used the private access modifier for our class members, and to access those private class members, we have written public getter and setters. With the help of setters, we have also seen how we can validate our class input data, and how we can provide the security. And we also seen one of the example where we have created the student class, and we are able to validate the age of that particular student. As another example, we can create one kind of software we can where we can validate the age of voters, right? So if you talk about in India, the age of voter is more than 18 or 18, right? So less than 18, less than 18, and if a user is less than 18 of the age, then he can't cast his vote. So that those validation you can provide there. So that's how the good encapsulation will help us to protect data, give me the control data access, how we can good design and to secure the data, to give the flexible and maintainable applications. So that's it for this encapsulation class. In next module, we will talk about inheritance and polymorphism, and let's discuss these thing in next class. Thank you.